Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named The Hell Girl. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The first story begins with Yuko finally securing a coveted school recommendation through her own hard work, putting her on a direct path to a prestigious university in 6 months. Her mother was overjoyed and, in her excitement, gave Yuko a valuable watch left behind by her late father. The watch had been a symbol of her parents' love when they married, and now her mother was passing it on to her. At school, Yuko was frequently bullied by a group of girls led by Rina. Beatings and extortion were a regular occurrence. This time, claiming Yuko's money was dirty, Rina and her friends started kicking her. Yuko came from a poor family and had to work part-time to help make ends meet, but working was against school rules. Rina's group often used this to threaten her. As they left, they laughed and taunted her, telling her to go find Hell Girl if she had a problem. Hell Girl is an urban legend. It's said that her official website only appears at the stroke of midnight. If you type the name of someone you resent into the site, Hell Girl will appear to eliminate your grudge. When Yuko first opened the site, the page wouldn't load. It seemed it was just a legend after all. But shortly after, the site became accessible. It was exactly midnight. After typing Rina's name, Yuko hesitated, wondering if this was really the right thing to do. After a moment of internal struggle, she abandoned the idea of revenge. However, Hell Girl, having heard her call, had already arrived. Yuko sensed someone outside, but when she opened the window, she saw nothing. The next day, Yuko was threatened by Rina's group again. This time, they demanded she steal something. If she refused, they would immediately report her part-time job to the school. Yuko's theft was quickly discovered, and she was nearly caught. This gave the girls another excuse to torment her. Although they despised Yuko, they knew their limits. As long as they didn't directly kill her, they believed they would be fine. They were confident the school would cover for them, dismissing it as students just playing around. After this incident, Yuko could no longer bear it. As soon as the clock struck midnight, she went to the Hell Correspondence website and submitted Rina's name. Shortly after sending it, she received a confirmation text from Hell Girl. When the school learned that a student had been caught stealing, they encouraged others to report any information. The situation had escalated. If Yuko was reported, she would likely lose her university recommendation. With more leverage over Yuko, Rina became even more audacious, even demanding that Yuko steal money from her mother, who was the treasurer of the Parent-Teacher Association. After stealing the money, Yuko felt terribly guilty. When her mother told her that her father would have been proud of her, Yuko's conscience returned. She put the money back and chose to face the beating at school instead. As punishment, Rina and her friends shockingly tried to force Yuko into prostitution to earn money. Under their pressure, Yuko reluctantly approached a man on the street. The man was a creep, and upon realizing she was soliciting, immediately tried to take her to a hotel. Fortunately, he ran into a man on the way, which gave Yuko a chance to escape. The three are all assistants to Hell Girl. The man's intervention was not part of the plan. He acted on his own impulse. Yuko fled and fell onto the street, right in the path of an oncoming car. Just as she was about to be hit, Hell Girl, Enma, appeared again. Enma transported Yuko to another dimension. After introducing herself, Enma presented a black straw doll. She explained that if Yuko truly wanted her grudge eliminated, she had to untie the red string on the doll. Once she did, the person she resented would be sent to hell. However, this action came at a price. Harming another means harming oneself. Upon her death, Yuko's own soul would also be sent to hell, where she would suffer eternal torment with no chance of escape. The choice to pull the string or not was entirely Yuko's. Enma would not interfere. The next day, Yuko was reported by other students for theft and supposed compensated dating. The teacher, upon receiving the report, revoked her university recommendation. Even when Yuko tried to expose Rina, the teacher didn't believe her, stating that Rina was a well-behaved student who would never threaten anyone. Yuko was left speechless. While she was grieving, she overheard Rina talking to her friends. It turned out Rina had been after the recommendation all along. Since Yuko always outperformed her, Rina knew that reporting the part-time job would only result in a warning and wouldn't affect the recommendation. That's why she devised the vicious plan to force Yuko into committing a crime. Once Yuko was disqualified, Rina would be the natural choice for the spot with her good girl image. At this point, Rina was completely unhinged. She not only mocked Yuko for being poor and undeserving of a good education, but also spitefully destroyed the watch Yuko's father had left her. This was the final straw. Yuko made her decision. Even if it meant going to hell after she died, she would drag Rina down with her. With that, Yuko sent her grudge to Enma. Receiving the message while bathing, fully clothed, Enma immediately changed into her sexy work attire. Meanwhile, Rena was gloating with her friends when they suddenly turned on her, cursing and insulting her. Then, Hellgirl's assistant arrived. His two friends' heads detached and flew around, terrifying Rena. She tried to convince herself it was all a dream, but the assistant shattered her delusion. To give Rena a taste of her own medicine, the two assistants held her over the edge of the rooftop, just as Rena had done to Yuko. Yet, Rena showed no remorse. She declared she was just using her own methods to win the recommendation, and that poor people should just work instead of dreaming of college. For someone so unrepentant, Enma's only solution was to send her away. When Rena awoke, she was on a boat on the river to the underworld, destined for hell to suffer and reflect on her actions. Afterward, Yuko had her father's watch repaired. A cursed mark had appeared on her body. Perhaps she really would go to hell when she died, but for now, life had to go on. With her mother's blessing, Yuko decided to try again, determined to get into a prestigious university on her own. The second story begins with Yuki's father hanging himself at his company not long ago. Yuki believed his death was work-related. He was a devoted family man, and everything he did was for them. For the past 6 months, he had been working late into the night. She couldn't think of any reason for his suicide other than extreme work pressure. She went to the company president, demanding an explanation. The president produced her father's time card, which showed him clocking out on time every day, suggesting there was no immense pressure. He then cruelly told Yuki that her father's suicide was because of her younger brother, Daichi. He claimed her father didn't want to see Daichi anymore. Daichi suffered from severe social withdrawal and stayed locked in his room, seeing no one. Their father had been mentally exhausted trying to care for him. That night, Daichi accessed the Hell Correspondence website and entered the president's name. Immediately after sending it, he received a confirmation text from Enma, who then appeared before him. As before, Enma presented the black straw doll and explained the terms. If he wanted revenge, he could untie the string, and his target would be sent to hell. But this came at a cost. His own soul would also go to hell after death to suffer for eternity. The decision was his to make. To investigate the president, the two assistants infiltrated his company. The man had been promoted to branch president 6 months ago and had demanded that all communication, even meetings, be done via computer and email. The man suspected the president did this because he disliked interacting with people. Yuki's father had spent every day trying to draw Daichi out of his shell, buying him things he liked, telling him jokes, and trying to teach him about life. Daichi remained unresponsive, but his father never gave up, believing that one day he would recover. One day, Yuki knocked on Daichi's door to tell him their father had hanged himself at work. Daichi knew his father wouldn't commit suicide without a reason. Searching through his father's wallet, he discovered receipts from a manga cafe. The staff there told him his father often came to work overtime on his drawing projects after his shift, supposedly on the president's orders. They also gave Daichi some documents his father had left behind. Daichi gave the clues to Yuki, who immediately confronted the president. At first, the president feigned ignorance, but faced with the evidence, he dropped the act. He called Yuki's father useless, saying that in this day and age, anyone who couldn't use a computer didn't deserve to be his employee. He couldn't fire him directly without paying severance, so he intentionally piled on the pressure, hoping he would quit. Several other employees had already been forced out this way. This time, the outcome was unexpected, but the president felt no guilt. He argued that a company exists to make a profit and cannot afford to keep useless employees. Meanwhile, Daichi managed to crack his father's computer password and read his diary. It detailed the pressure the president had put on him. Though he was allowed to leave on time, the workload was so immense that he had to work overtime elsewhere, all while trying to learn how to use a computer. The president also frequently humiliated him in front of other employees. Just as Yuki left the cafe, the president contacted some thugs to ambush her. They knocked her down a flight of stairs and stole the evidence. Now the president thought he was safe. After reading his father's diary, Daichi finally understood the immense suffering his father had endured for him and Yuki. When he learned Yuki had been attacked, he checked her bag, found the evidence missing, and understood everything. Enraged by the president's audacity, he confronted him. The president, in turn, berated Daichi, claiming that people like him and his father, who were just leeches, were the reason the country's economy was struggling. He said survival is about competition, and his father was eliminated for being incompetent. He then told Daichi he was just as useless and should follow his father's example. This was the last straw for Daichi. He decided he would take the president down with him. He relayed his hatred to Enma, who immediately set her plan in motion. When the president returned to his office, he saw a light on. Inside, he found Yuki's deceased father, still working. The president wasn't scared at first, but then the ghost demonstrated supernatural powers, terrifying him. Soon, the president found himself hanging by a noose. The two assistants appeared, giving him a chance to repent, but even in this desperate situation, he refused to admit fault, insisting he was doing society a favor by cleaning up the trash. Seeing this, Enma silenced him with her actions. The president was ferried to the river of the underworld. He begged to be let go, saying he had work to do. Enma told him not to worry, as she had a job for him, one that would never end. After this, Daichi finally emerged from his social withdrawal. Though his soul was now bound by the contract, life had to continue, and his goal was to live each remaining day to the fullest. The third story begins with Tsuruta having already had 2 abortions. Her doctor warned her that a third could lead to permanent infertility, as she was now 5 months pregnant, and the procedure carried risks. Tsuruta was the mistress of her section chief, Tori. No one at the company knew about their relationship, as they had little public contact. Tori was young and handsome, and despite being married, many female colleagues had a crush on him. After an intimate moment, Tori told Tsuruta he had no interest in his ugly wife and hadn't touched her ugly body in a long time. He said only being with Tsuruta made him feel alive. When his wife called, he lied as usual, claiming he was working overtime. Tsuruta then told him she was 5 months pregnant and wanted to keep the baby this time. Before she could explain why, Tori stopped her. He begged her to wait, claiming he was already negotiating a divorce with his wife. If their affair became public now, his reputation would be ruined. He asked her to have one last abortion, promising it would be the final one. While chatting with colleagues, Tsuruta heard about the Hell Girl legend. Curious, she searched for the site and successfully accessed it. Just as she typed in Tori's wife's name and was about to send it, she saw Enma's reflection on the screen. The fleeting image made her pause. Following Tori's wishes, Tsuruta went to the hospital. The abortion was excruciatingly painful, but she held on to the belief that once this ordeal was over, she could be with Tori openly. This conviction helped her endure it. To avoid suspicion from her colleagues, she returned to work just a few days later. Tori was relieved that his reputation was safe. To appease Tsuruta, he claimed an urgent meeting had prevented him from accompanying her to the hospital and invited her to spend Sunday with him. When Sunday arrived, Tsuruta went out to buy groceries and saw Tori at the supermarket with his family. They looked happy together, and his wife was visibly pregnant. Tsuruta realized Tori would never divorce her under these circumstances. He cared too much about his reputation. Had he been lying to her all along? As these thoughts raced through her mind, she suddenly began to hemorrhage. She survived, but the doctor regretfully informed her that she would never be able to have children again. She tried to call Tori, but his wife answered. It turned out his wife knew about the affair, but had chosen to endure it for the sake of their family. She warned Tsuruta to stop bothering her husband and not to destroy their family. When Tsuruta asked about the divorce, his wife stated that she and Tori were very much in love and had never considered it. At that moment, Tsuruta understood everything. She had been naive. She and his wife were just playthings for Tori. Remembering the website, she no longer hesitated and entered Tori's name. After clicking send, she felt foolish for believing in such a legend. Overwhelmed by everything that had happened, she felt exhausted and decided to end her life by slitting her wrist. Fortunately, Enma and her companions arrived just in time to save her. Enma introduced herself and presented the black straw doll. She explained that if Tsuruta truly wanted her revenge, she should untie the red string. Her target would be banished to hell, but in return, her own soul would face the same fate upon her death. The choice was hers alone. After waking up, Tsuruta, like a naive young girl, started plucking petals from a flower, testing Tori's feelings for her. She did this from day to night and finally called him. As always, Tori made excuses, claiming he was busy at work and telling her not to believe his wife's smelly nonsense. This was the final blow. Tsuruta knew it was time to say goodbye for good. She untied the red string, and Enma received her grudge. After hanging up the phone, Tori noticed a female colleague in the office. She had brought him a late-night snack. Knowing many women at the office were attracted to him, he started getting ideas. The colleague then offered him a massage, which he gladly accepted. But soon, her grip tightened. The colleague was actually Hellgirl's assistant in disguise. The scene shifted, and Tori found himself strapped to an operating table. Hellgirl's assistants were going to give him a taste of an abortion. They turned on a power drill, preparing to use it on him. The experience was beyond agonizing, and though he wished he could pass out, he remained fully conscious. Enma appeared, condemning him for his deceit and cruelty, and ferried him away. On the way to hell, Tori could still feel the excruciating pain, a pain that would accompany him for eternity. Tsuruta would never see her own children, as her soul was now bound for hell, while the babies she had aborted would be reincarnated. The fourth story begins with a young girl named Tsugumi, who has formed a special connection with Enma ever since she accidentally saw her vanish before her eyes, often dreaming about it. Her father, Shibata, a freelance journalist, could do little but comfort her. Shibata also did paparazzi-style work, taking compromising photos of celebrities for money. Today, a famous star bought photos from him of her on a date. To avoid exposure, she had to pay, and she was filled with resentment toward him. Shibata's old friend, a cafe owner, wished he would find a stable job, but Shibata wouldn't listen. One day, the chief editor of a magazine asked Shibata to investigate a car accident involving a politician's secretary. The secretary had confessed to killing a female university student in a hit-and-run, but he had been driving the politician's car. Rumors suggested that the politician himself was driving with the famous star in the passenger seat, and the secretary was just taking the fall. The editor wanted Shibata to expose the politician, even if it meant fabricating news to frame him. With elections approaching, the politician was busy on the streets raising funds to win public support. Shibata decided it was better to investigate through the politician's mistress, the famous star. When the famous star recognized Shibata, she pretended to know nothing, but he was persistent. She managed to get away and speed off in her car. However, her car soon came to a stop. Shibata thought he finally had his chance for an interview, but to his astonishment, the famous star vanished right before his eyes. When he told the cafe owner, his friend mentioned the Hell correspondence. He suggested that someone might have used it to contact Hell Girl, as a celebrity like the star would have many enemies. Though the owner told him how to access the site, Shibata dismissed it as a mere urban legend. Meanwhile, a young man named Nakajima was being thrown out by the politician's bodyguards. Enma appeared and gave him the straw doll. Tsugumi sensed this and murmured "Black Straw Doll," which reminded Shibata of his friend's words. Skeptically, he tried to access the Hell correspondence website. At first, it didn't work, confirming his belief. But at midnight, the page suddenly became active. He was stunned. The website was real. The next day, Nakajima was blocked by the bodyguards again. Desperate, he thought of the straw doll. Just as he was about to untie the string, Shibata stopped him. It turns out, Nakajima's girlfriend was the student killed in the hit-and-run. She had been on her way to meet him to celebrate him finding a job. He had witnessed the accident and saw only the politician and the famous star in the car as they fled the scene. Although he reported it, the police arrested the secretary, who confessed, and they closed the case. His pleas to the police and attempts to confront the politician were all in vain. His last hope was Hell Girl, even if it meant damning his own soul. Shibata asked Nakajima to work with him, claiming he also wanted to bring the politician to justice, though he didn't reveal his assignment. However, his editor suddenly backed out, paying him but telling him to drop the investigation, warning him not to cross powerful people. Shibata had hoped to use Nakajima's testimony for a big story, but now that was impossible. Nakajima lost all hope and decided revenge through Hell Girl was his only option. Shibata, unwilling to give up, tried to tail the politician, but his car broke down. However, Nakajima was already waiting in the politician's yard. He wanted to know if the man felt any remorse. When the politician realized his pretense was useless, he revealed his true colors. He scoffed at the idea of ruining his career over such a minor incident and told Nakajima his girlfriend was just unlucky. He callously advised Nakajima that with money and status, he could have any woman he wanted. Enraged, Nakajima pulled out the straw doll and untied the string. Shibata arrived too late. The politician vanished before their eyes. Waking up before Enma, the politician tried to bribe her to send him back. Enma coldly informed him that a life could not be bought with money. After his revenge, Nakajima was left in a daze, unsure of what to do with his future. This event confirmed for Shibata that Hell Girl was real, and he decided she was worth investigating further. The fifth story begins with a young woman who was kidnapped by a serial abuser a month ago. After contacting Enma, she found a chance to escape with the black straw doll. Unfortunately, the man caught up with her and, as punishment, buried her alive. Seeing this, Enma had to reclaim the doll. This entire scene was sensed by Tsugumi. While the man was away, another captive, Keiko, tried to access the Hell correspondence website just like the previous victim. But it wasn't midnight yet. Just as the man was about to enter the house, the website became active. Keiko, also a kidnap victim, was smarter. She feigned compliance while looking for a way to escape. The next day, Tsugumi described the vision to her father. A cross in a forest with the words, "My sister rests here." Shibata dismissed it as a dream. Soon, Tsugumi had another vision of Enma entering the abuser's den and giving the straw doll to Keiko. The first victim's body was quickly found because, with her last breath, she had managed to push her hand above the ground. After reading the news, Shibata asked his editor if he could go to the crime scene. As he was leaving, Tsugumi called and again told him what she saw, describing a house with a black roof near a church where a woman was being held captive. Shibata still didn't take her seriously, and Tsugumi angrily hung up. Tsugumi learned the location of the church from the cafe owner. With little money, she set off, hoping she could save the woman. Meanwhile, Keiko kept trying to reach the straw doll on a high shelf whenever the man was out. At the crime scene, Shibata ran into an old acquaintance in the police force and learned about the case. A young officer then found a wooden cross with the inscription, "My sister rests here." Shibata suddenly remembered Tsugumi's words and realized she had been telling the truth. He tried to call her, but she was still angry and wouldn't answer. He had to go to the cafe owner for help. With help from the police, Tsugumi got closer to her destination. A long-haired man bumped into her, looked at her map, and told her she was going the wrong way, offering to guide her. But his creepy demeanor made Tsugumi suspicious, and she ran away. Her instincts were right. The man started following her. Tsugumi remembered the house had a gray roof, but there were many such houses in the area. Luckily, she soon found the one from her vision. Shibata learned from the cafe owner that Tsugumi was looking for a church. He knew the way, but his car ran out of gas. Tsugumi entered the house and was disgusted by the filth. Before she realized it, the man was behind her, blocking her exit. She had become his new victim. The girl she had seen was Keiko. After waking Keiko, Tsugumi urged her to escape with her, but Keiko was terrified. The previous girl who resisted had been killed, and she feared the same fate. Tsugumi spotted the straw doll, but as she reached for it, the man came in. To protect herself, Keiko acted submissively. The man had a strange obsession with forcing his victims to be his sister. When Tsugumi defied him, the man became enraged and attacked her, knocking the straw doll to the floor in the process. While he was distracted, Keiko grabbed the doll but hesitated, knowing the price of revenge. Shibata finally located the house after hearing Tsugumi's screams. At that moment, Tsugumi fought back and injured the man's hand. He furiously grabbed a knife to kill her, but Shibata burst in just in time. It turns out the abuser was the same young police officer who had found the cross. Armed, he had the upper hand over Shibata. Fortunately, at that critical moment, Keiko pulled the red string and Tsugumi was saved. Enma's appearance stunned everyone. The man was taken away. Since he liked to tie people up, he was given a taste of his own medicine. The assistant grimly nailed him to a cross. After his suffering, Enma transported him to hell. On the river to the underworld, the man remained unrepentant, even asking Enma if she would be his sister. She ignored him. Later, police found dismembered remains in his house. Keiko was safe, though now damned to hell upon her death. After this, Shibata could no longer deny the existence of Hell Girl. After all, she had saved his daughter's life. The sixth story begins with Sachi thinking that contacting Hell Girl would bring her freedom. But just as she submitted Asako's name, Asako called her. Sachi's every move was being watched. Asako mocked her for believing in urban legends and expressed surprise at how much Sachi hated her, enough to sacrifice her own soul. Sachi and Asako had been inseparable friends since childhood, vowing to be together forever. This time, Sachi had made a mistake and had to be punished with a cut from a knife, just like always. When she was 10, Sachi had been abused by a tutor. Her family saw him as a polite and kind man and didn't believe her. Asako, learning of Sachi's plight, decided to get rid of the tutor. She lured him to a staircase and pushed him down. Afterward, Asako confessed to Sachi what she had done. Grateful, Sachi became her closest friend. Sachi had a crush on Takami, a popular upperclassman. They had only met once briefly. Asako was extremely possessive and couldn't stand Sachi being with anyone else. In retaliation, she cut up Sachi's underwear and a towel Takami had given her, enraging Sachi. Enma appeared and explained how to use the straw doll. Untie the string and Asako would go to hell, but Sachi would lose her soul. Sachi considered it, but a phone call interrupted her, and she decided against it. The next day, other girls who admired Takami confronted Sachi. They accused her of publicly claiming Takami had acted inappropriately towards her the previous night. As Takami was a model student, this was a huge scandal. Sachi had run away, but her name was on a receipt, and a waiter recognized her bracelet. She couldn't deny it. She was sure Asako was behind it, but when she confronted her, Asako feigned ignorance. Frustrated, Sachi declared their friendship was over. Still, she couldn't bring herself to take revenge. Later, a teacher called to inform her that Takami had fallen down a flight of stairs and was in a coma. Sachi knew instantly it was Asako's doing. This time, Asako admitted it, saying she hated Takami for taking Sachi away from her. Hearing the truth, Sachi showed no mercy and untied the red string on the doll, causing Asako to vanish. Sachi celebrated her newfound freedom. Just then, Hellgirl's assistants appeared. The person Enma was there for was Sachi. She was confused. It was then revealed that Sachi and Asako were the same person. When she was abused as a child, Sachi had created another personality to protect herself, the ruthless and possessive Asako. Although Sachi had two personalities, her appearance never changed. So when the Asako personality met with Takami, he wasn't on guard, as he recognized her as Sachi. Sachi finally realized she herself had pushed Takami down the stairs. The two personalities were one and the same. Even though the name sent was Asako, the soul being taken was Sachi's. Arriving in the underworld, the Asako personality was finally at peace, knowing that now Sachi would never leave her. The seventh story begins with Shibata taking Tsugumi to his colleague Koyama's wedding. Koyama's fiancé was the son of another publishing house's president, a perfect match. On top of that, Koyama's father had just gotten engaged to a woman named Kiriko. It was a time of double happiness for the family, but Shibata felt he had seen Kiriko somewhere before. Sometime later, Koyama discovered a large sum of money was missing from her father's account. He explained that he had given it to Kiriko to start a business together, but now Kiriko was unreachable. It was clear Koyama's father had been scammed. Kiriko was a notorious marriage swindler with a long history of fraud. Shibata had seen her photo before. Subsequently, Koyama's fiancé requested they postpone the wedding as Kiriko's scandal could affect them both. On her way home, Koyama ran into Kiriko and demanded an explanation, as the money was her father's life savings. With the money secured, Kiriko dropped her facade and bluntly called Koyama's father a fool who deserved to be tricked. Desperate, Koyama turned to the Hell Girl legend. Enma soon appeared and gave her the black straw doll. Tsugumi sensed this. Hearing about it, Shibata immediately met with Koyama. Koyama explained that after her mother's death, her father had been lost. To help him, she had contacted a matchmaking agency, which led to Kiriko entering their lives. For a while, her father seemed happy again, but it was all a lie. After hearing the story, Shibata took the straw doll from Koyama, telling her that revenge wouldn't solve her problems and pulling the string would ruin her future. Tsugumi was upset by Shibata's self-centeredness, remarking that it was no wonder her own mother had left. Back home, Koyama discovered her father had also co-signed a loan for Kiriko, plunging their family into financial ruin. Enma appeared to Koyama again, asking if she was ready now. But as Koyama considered it, a phone call interrupted her. Her father had been pleading with her fiancé not to call off the wedding, but the scandal was too big, and the decision was up to his parents. Despite the devastating blow, her father managed to pull himself together, acknowledging his own responsibility in the matter. Koyama thanked Shibata, admitting he was right. Revenge wouldn't change the future. Later, Koyama's father ran into Kiriko on the street. All he wanted was an apology. Instead, Kiriko acted as if she didn't know him, asking who he is. This completely broke him. After much contemplation, he took his own life. Upon hearing of her father's death, Koyama was consumed by grief. Tsugumi told Shibata he never should have interfered. If Koyama had pulled the string earlier, her father might still be alive. While revenge might not solve problems, it could prevent villains from causing more tragedy. After saying goodbye to Shibata and Tsugumi, Koyama no longer hesitated and finally untied the string. The eighth story begins with Tsugumi sensing Enma's presence while preparing for Christmas, seemingly in a bookstore. Following Tsugumi's description, Shibata found the store. A 50-year-old magazine caught his eye. The shopkeeper told him it was the same one Enma had been looking at. Inside was a short story called Purgatory Girl, which described a character almost identical to Hell Girl. By sending a letter, Purgatory Girl would send your enemy to hell, but the price was the client's soul. To find out more, Shibata met with the magazine's editor, who told him the author was an unsuccessful illustrator named Kitagawa, and this was the only story he ever wrote. The editor gave Shibata his address. Shibata found Kitagawa living in poverty and sickness. The editor speculated that the story's protagonist might be Kitagawa himself, as 50 years ago, there had been a series of rape murders in the area, and Kitagawa's wife was one of the victims. The novel contained a similar plot. Shibata obtained the 50-year-old police records from his contact. The police had identified the serial killer, but during the arrest, the suspect vanished in front of them, turning the case into an unsolved mystery. Shibata went back to Kitagawa, certain that he had met Hell Girl. As he pleaded for information, Kitagawa suddenly collapsed. Shibata stayed to take care of him, missing Christmas preparations with Tsugumi. After recovering, Kitagawa was more open but still unwilling to talk. Shibata decided to wait. That evening, a power outage occurred and Shibata lit a candle he had with him. Kitagawa was curious why he carried one. Shibata explained it was for celebrating Christmas with Tsugumi. Hearing this, Kitagawa finally told his story in the third person. 50 years ago, his wife was murdered by a local thug. When Kitagawa tried to confront him, he was beaten and humiliated by the killer, who taunted him about his powerlessness. In his despair, Kitagawa saw words appear in a blank space in a newspaper, showing purgatory correspondence. He sent a letter, and Purgatory Girl appeared. After he untied the string on the straw doll, the thug vanished from the world. Shibata was shocked to learn Enma had existed for so long. While Shibata saw her as a malevolent force, Kitagawa viewed her as his savior. The law had failed him, but she had delivered justice. In his final moments, Enma appeared to him, moved to tears by his story. With that, Kitagawa passed away peacefully. On the river to the underworld, he saw Enma again and told her she hadn't aged a day in 50 years and was still as beautiful as ever. For the first time, Enma smiled. Shibata rushed back to the cafe, where Tsugumi had fallen asleep waiting for him, just so he could taste the cake she had made. The ninth story begins when student Natsumi used the Hell correspondence to send a professor's name to escape the harassment of her creepy professor. But the professor remained persistent, wanting her to clarify things. Shibata heard about the case and found the professor, asking him to explain why he was stalking Natsumi. It turned out the professor wasn't a pervert at all. A few months ago, Natsumi had failed his class due to her poor attitude. No matter how much she pleaded or how her parents offered to donate to the school, the professor refused to change her grade. Furious, Natsumi falsely accused him of sexual harassment. The professor was unable to defend himself and was fired. His family distanced themselves from him. Though he hated Natsumi, all he wanted was for her to tell the truth so he could clear his name. Shibata reported the story. Enraged, Natsumi prepared to untie the string on her doll, but just then, the professor rang her doorbell. He pleaded with her to apologize publicly so he could forgive her and wouldn't have to sue and ruin her life. Natsumi gave a condescending, insincere apology. Satisfied, the professor started to leave, but Natsumi's malice resurfaced. She mocked him, telling him to get lost now that he had his apology. The professor realized she had no remorse. As they struggled, her mother came home, making it look like the professor was attacking her. With her mother as a witness, the professor was trapped. But Shibata still believed in his innocence. Soon, Natsumi noticed she was being followed by a young boy everywhere she went. Shibata found her and asked for her side of the story, but she recognized him as the journalist who helped the professor and refused to talk. One day, Natsumi confronted the boy. He was the professor's son. He had also contacted Hell Girl. If Natsumi didn't tell the truth, he would drag her to hell with him. Natsumi feigned an apology and then tried to snatch his straw doll. During the struggle, her own doll fell out of her bag. They each grabbed a doll and untied the strings simultaneously. Natsumi gloated, thinking she was faster, but then she suddenly vanished. Enma had come for her. Because her apology was insincere, she had to be punished. In her illusionary world, there was no one around to manipulate. Enma then revealed the truth. Natsumi had used a fake Hell correspondence site. It was actually an online shopping site, and the straw doll was delivered to her by mail. Due to the legend's popularity, many counterfeit sites had appeared. On the river to the underworld, Natsumi was still defiant, demanding to be returned for a party the next day. Enma simply told her she had no tomorrow. In the end, the professor was acquitted due to lack of evidence. Though legally innocent, his reputation was ruined. His wife didn't forgive him, but his son still believed in him, and that was enough. Shibata wondered why everyone who untied the strings said they had no regrets. Was there something good about Enma, or should he have never gotten involved? The 10th story begins with Kyoko accusing the hospital doctors of negligence, devastated by her daughter's recent death. When the hospital administration seemed dismissive, she threatened them with a straw doll she had received from Enma. Just as she was about to untie the string, her husband stopped her. At that moment, Kyoko suffered from amnesia, forgot her purpose, and was taken home. Sometime before, Kyoko and her daughter were in a car accident and rushed to the hospital. When her daughter's heart stopped, a young nurse persuaded her boyfriend, the hospital director's son, to stop resuscitation efforts. She told him it was an emergency situation and no one would blame him if it failed. The boyfriend agreed and started chatting with the nurse, unaware that a semi-conscious Kyoko heard everything. Seeing Kyoko cause a scene at the hospital, the boyfriend was nervous, but the nurse reassured him. The surgery had left Kyoko with severe memory impairment. Her memories would fade over time, so she would soon forget about her revenge. The real problem was the straw doll. If she ever pulled the string, one of them would die. They had to find it. The nurse went to Kyoko's home as a volunteer caregiver. Since Kyoko had lost her recent memories, the nurse searched the house freely but couldn't find the doll. She did, however, steal some money, knowing Kyoko would forget. Meanwhile, the forgotten straw doll, which was Hellgirl's assistant in disguise, was about to revert to his human form when Kyoko opened the door. Enma, who was also there, was discovered. Kyoko mistook Enma for her deceased daughter and introduced her to the nurse. The nurse, knowing the daughter was dead, assumed Enma was a con artist like herself, there to trick the old woman out of her money. As Kyoko's daughter, Enma experienced a long-lost sense of family and momentarily forgot her true identity. Her companions understood her feelings. When Kyoko's husband came home, she happily told him their daughter had returned. He was saddened by her delusion, but couldn't bring himself to correct her. Seeing his reaction, Kyoko consulted her notebook and realized Enma was not her daughter. By reading it, she remembered contacting Hellgirl, but couldn't access the site to investigate further. One day, Kyoko caught the nurse searching her daughter's room, a place she had been forbidden to enter. The nurse tried to use Kyoko's memory loss as an excuse, but Kyoko, though forgetful, was not foolish. She had also noticed money was missing. The nurse left in a huff. Kyoko relied on her notebook to remember who she was. She was grateful to Enma for the happiness she had brought her, even though she knew her real daughter was gone forever. Because Enma resembled her daughter, Kyoko made a request. She asked Enma to wear her daughter's clothes one last time. After a moment of hesitation, Enma agreed, perhaps seeing Kyoko as a mother figure. That night, the nurse snuck back in and finally found the straw doll. Kyoko caught her. The nurse again tried to lie, but Kyoko saw through it. With her cover blown, the nurse snatched the notebook, knowing it contained Kyoko's entire life, and planned to destroy it. She fled with the doll and the notebook. After tossing the notebook, she tried to discard the doll too, but Enma stopped her. Enma's superhuman strength and invulnerability shocked the nurse, who fled after uttering threats. Enma then helped Kyoko recover her memories related to Hellgirl and explained the doll's purpose again. Though her memory was still fragmented, Kyoko remembered everything the nurse had done. Her target was clear. It was the nurse's callous disregard for life that cost her her daughter. If the hospital had genuinely tried to save her, she wouldn't have sought revenge. With this realization, Kyoko untied the red string. The nurse was discussing marriage plans with her boyfriend, dreaming of becoming the director's wife when her boyfriend was revealed to be an illusion. For her crime of devaluing human life, she was made to feel like a worthless animal. An ambulance ran her over. The paramedics callously dismissed her as a lost cause, a waste of time. Even then, she didn't understand what she had done wrong. On her way to the underworld, she finally recognized Enma from the legends and knew she was dead. In the end, Kyoko lost all her memories, but perhaps it was for the best. A life filled with painful memories is no life at all. At least she could start anew. The 11th story begins with an organization called the Wakatsuki Foundation that had been extorting business owners for years with endless financial demands. Its leader, Wakatsuki, had ties to the thugs, leaving his victims helpless. A police friend nearing retirement asked Shibata to gather evidence on Wakatsuki to make one last significant bust. As Shibata was tailing him, his editor called and warned him off, but Shibata refused to listen. Wakatsuki's men soon spotted him. Learning he was a journalist, Wakatsuki ordered his men to kidnap his daughter. Meanwhile, Tsugumi sensed her father's danger. After roughing Shibata up, Wakatsuki was about to shoot him when Enma suddenly pulled him into another dimension, saving Shibata's life. Wakatsuki was then subjected to his punishment and taken to hell, vanishing without a trace. Shibata, who had always condemned Enma's existence, was now in the awkward position of having been saved by her. After reciting her usual lines, Enma turned to leave. Her assistant, guessing she wanted to save Shibata, disguised himself as Wakatsuki and let Shibata go, earning Enma's gratitude. After being saved, Shibata decided to stop investigating Enma. The Wakatsuki Foundation was eventually investigated by the government, bringing long overdue justice to its victims. Just as Shibata was reflecting on this, he received a picture message from Tsugumi's phone, a photo of her tied up. The kidnapper had left her belongings outside the cafe and used her phone to contact Shibata. Wary of the police after his wife's unsolved disappearance 5 years prior, Shibata hesitated to report it. He suspected Wakatsuki's men. His friend urged him to calm down and trust the police. It was tomorrow that marked the 5th anniversary of his wife's disappearance. His friend speculated that the kidnapper could be his wife, suggesting Shibata might have wronged her. This angered Shibata. The cafe owner also suggested that Shibata might have unknowingly hurt someone in the past. That night, Enma appeared to Shibata, telling him someone was consumed by a grudge, and transported him to an office. There, he saw that someone had indeed died because of him, but he didn't recognize the person. Soon, the kidnapper sent a video, warning that Tsugumi would be killed by sunset the next day. Desperate, Shibata sought Enma's help, willing to make a pact. When Enma appeared, he demanded the straw doll. Instead, she showed him a vision from 5 years ago. His wife hadn't been kidnapped or left. She had vanished into thin air. Only Enma could do that. Someone who hated his wife had used the Hell correspondence. The next morning, his police friend gave him a file. 6 years ago, Shibata had supposedly written an article that falsely accused a company president, driving the man to kill his family and then himself. Shibata had no memory of it. It turned out the person who framed him was his own editor. The thugs behind the Wakatsuki Foundation had forced the editor to publish the defamatory article. The editor, who secretly resented Shibata's self-centeredness despite their supposed friendship, used Shibata's name to avoid retaliation. The deceased president's last name was the same as the cafe owner's. Shibata realized the kidnapper was the cafe owner, the man who had been so kind to him and Tsugumi. Shibata tried to explain he was framed, but the owner wouldn't listen. He had spent 6 years planning his revenge, getting close to Shibata and his daughter. However, deep down, he had come to see Tsugumi as his own kin. Through her connection, Tsugumi understood Enma's heart. She never wanted people to pull the string, but was powerless to stop them. With Enma's help, Shibata saw a vision of the previous day. The owner had already untied the red string. Enma had delayed taking him to hell out of consideration. But in a final twist, Enma sent Shibata back. He was too late. He found Tsugumi seemingly dead at the hands of the owner. The owner blamed Shibata for everything, refusing to believe his explanations. Enma then showed him the truth, a vision of Wakatsuki conspiring with the thugs to frame the president, and another of Shibata confronting his editor, who casually admitted his crime. The owner was shattered, realizing he had avenged the wrong person. He had waited 6 years for Tsugumi to grow to the same age as his deceased niece, only to see himself as a fool. As Enma went to retrieve the straw doll, the owner snatched it, declaring he couldn't live with himself and would end it all. In reality, the owner hadn't harmed Tsugumi. He couldn't bring himself to hurt the girl he saw as family. But because the contract he made was for Shibata, Shibata's name was still recorded for Hell. Elsewhere, Shibata's police friend used the Hell correspondence to eliminate the thug boss, restoring peace. Hatred is a never-ending cycle. Clearing one grudge only gives rise to a new one. Therefore, no matter how much Enma wishes to not see humanity destroy itself, she must continue her work. This concludes the Hell Girl series. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.